Yo YouTube, I want to introduce you to my new friend here. This is my new Atlas stone that was created by Will Development. In fact, Will, who's a local guy here, has created all of my Atlas stones. This one is, if you can tell, is a bit unique. It's special in that it's got this dark coating over it. It's sort of grippy. A little different than the powder white ones that I have there. And the reason why he made this for me is because the show that I'll be doing at the end of this month, by the way, requires that I use a unique 220-pound stone for the shouldering. I've been doing it with a 200, and then I also have a 225, but because he's the manufacturer of the stones for the event, he wanted to make me an exact replica. And so I just want to give Will a shout out, thank him for that. He's also going to be doing the stones for one of the professional shows. I don't know if it's World's Strongest Man or Strongman Games or something like that, but he's really proud and I'm really proud of him. He's one of those guys that got into Strongman because he was watching my videos on YouTube back when he was in high school, and now he's a prominent character, and I'm really appreciative of him for bringing this by for me. Today though, I won't be using my stone. In fact, I'm going to be focusing on upper body, as I've been doing for the Mondays leading up to my show, because I've got a log press and an axle press, and I gotta make sure I'm strong enough to be able to handle those. So I want to get started with this X bar over here, and hopefully you enjoy the show. So I'm going to superset overhead press with bent over row. So I get sort of a push-pull. All right, it's my upper body day. When's the show? 30th. The 30th. So that means 26 more days? I'm gonna write that. 26 days out. And I gotta be completely honest, I think I've been giving it maybe a 75%, 80% effort, focus. Granted, all the other things happening in my life here. So Strongman is not my top priority. But it's something fun that I'm doing and hopefully entertaining to you. But I've got 26 days, and that means I gotta turn it up just a little bit. Not necessarily with the training. I wanna stay safe, I wanna stay strong. I can handle all the weights in the event. I just don't wanna do anything to throw myself off and enhance my physiological lifestyle by eliminating alcohol this month. That's something Colleen and I committed to. So we usually drink wine on the weekends. No more for the next 26 days. Making sure I'm getting enough rest at night, not stressing out during the day, being hydrated, eating well. I've cut back my calories quite a bit. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I've dropped about 10 pounds over the past month and a half. Being able to maintain my strength while dropping that weight, because I don't want to be bloated no more. Just don't feel good. It's just not comfortable. Walking around and breathing out of my mouth. Having to go like this to tie my shoelaces. Losing my breath going up the stairs. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. So I'm not sure I ever want to do that ever again. So I'm hovering around 230. I think I'd be most comfortable, probably around 215, but I'll approach that after the show. Kyle, can you move that barbell from over there? Dude, just take it down. Uh-huh. Much better. So I got Kyle here helping me out, but I also got some Q&As that Kyle has for me there, since you guys responded to my for your questions last week. So we'll have some fun. Probably try not to get too distracted, but we'll listen to Kyle and you listen to me. as I'm pushing this weight.
We got over 500 questions, so this is gonna be a long video.
Oh shit.
No, we'll get to as many as we can.
No.
But first we got one from Strength Organic. Yo, Elliott, I'm interested in competing in Strongman, but I want to stay natural. Is it even worth it if there's always going to be people more enhanced?
Well, it depends on what your goal is, right? Like, if you're naturally strong and you're gifted and you can compete, you can do like I did. I was natural. I became professional. I won my pro show natural, and then I started using it to compete with the pros. And then I came to realize that I was overdoing it and it wasn't worth it. And so I stopped using steroids. It was only for about 6 months. My opinion is, if you're okay not winning, right? That's really what it's about. If you're okay just competing, doing the best you can, and realize that there are going to be guys that are using that are going to beat you, and you can reconcile that and be at peace with that, then you're doing it for the right reasons, right? Because you enjoy the lift, you enjoy the competition, and you're willing to subject yourself to competing against guys who are not natural. But if you want to win, and winning is your goal, you want to dominate and destroy everybody you come up against, and they're on something, then you might want to get on it too. At least that was my mindset, right? I didn't want someone to have a competitive edge over me. So I was like, that's why I even started using like wrist wraps and elbow wraps. I was like, well, if these guys are using wrist wraps, right? They call that gear too. It's like, well, then I'll use it too, right? I don't want anybody to have an edge on me. So it really is up to you. Luckily today, there's a lot of guidance and you can do it safely, right? There are a lot of guys on YouTube that teach you how to use it safely. You could hire someone to teach you how to use it safely, because it is medication, right? And you want to make sure you know what you're doing. So if I were in your shoes and you really wanted to use it, find someone that can help you along the way, right? We've got all these different clinics and stuff now.
We got a question from Jerry. Yo, Elliott, if you weren't who you are now, what would you be doing?
That doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know how to be anything else than what I am. I mean, there were some graceful moments in my life where things happened that I couldn't have planned or foreseen, right? Like marrying my high school girlfriend, YouTube coming out about the time I started strength camp and strength training. These are like serendipitous events that I didn't make happen, but I was always going to be me. I started lifting when I was in high school. I was obsessed about it through college. I got out, I knew what I wanted to make a career out of. I wanted to teach people how to grow stronger. So if things didn't unfold the way they did, I'd still be the same, except it'd just be different circumstances, right? Like if there's no YouTube and I built strength camp, maybe I'd still be back in St. Pete at strength camp training athletes, right? Like rather than here, far away from society with no Wi-Fi, talking to you guys on YouTube. So I don't know. It's kind of one of those questions like, you know, if you're not who you are, who would you be? I don't fucking know. That's not up to me. What other things could I have done, right? Like I was this close to being a Marine officer. I've always been interested in things like I could have been a fireman or law enforcement or just some sort of career where my courage could be exercised, right? Running into burning buildings or chasing down bad guys or crawling through ditches with a gun and a helmet. Those are the kind of things that like were attractive to me. What else was I into, Kyle, when I was younger? It was either Marines or lifting. Yeah. That was it. That was all I was obsessed with. Marines or lifting. So lifting equates football. So Marines or football. You guys got a lot of personal questions today, huh? What would Elliott do? What would Elliott think? What would Elliott say? WWES? I'll do this and then.
Yo, Elliott, what's the next tattoo you're getting?
None. In fact, I've started removing tattoos because it took me 42 years to realize tattoos are stupid. Coming from a guy with tattoos. Here's another thing. A lot of people, they have opinions about the fact that I changed my mind on things. They're like, Elliott, how could you say XYZ when you've in the past ABC'd? Well, this is a perfect example. I was young, I was stupid. I thought it was cool because everybody was doing it. I wanted to stand out and be different. I think that's where it began, because I was in high school. And then I grew up. And now I look at them, I'm like, that was stupid. So I'll share something a little personal. Back here, you can barely see it, but I had a Mighty Mouse tattoo. Fucking Mighty Mouse cartoon on my body. I'm a fucking grown man. But I was like 20 years old. I thought it was cool. And so that's being removed. I have one more session for it to be completely removed. I don't know if you can see the shadow there. But I wouldn't get another tattoo, bro. Yeah, that's it. I would get them all removed if it wasn't so expensive and painful. So my suggestion is, don't get tattoos. That just happens to be my opinion as a boomer, right? Maybe you want to do it and then you figure it out later too. But no tattoos. It's kind of funny because the culture has, the teeter-totter or the pendulum has swung so quickly in the culture that it's funny that like in the 1980s and 90s, things that were considered like rebellious, right? Like, whoa, tattoos, right? It was like it was like, you know, it was a status, it was a symbol that you were doing things differently. Completely flip-flop today, because now if you don't have tattoos, it's like, wow, look at that person, it's like unique, that's special. You stand out by not having freaking markings all over your body. Same thing with a lot of different things in our culture, right? It's like rebellious now. It's like a flex now after the sexual revolution to have a family and a wife and children and stay together, right? Like that's odd, that's strange, that's counterculture, that's rebellious today. So normal shit today is rebellious. Think about that, right? That's how being traditional is like the new rebellious flex, right? Because everyone's a degenerate, right? Doesn't make you unique anymore, right? It used to be a time when it's like, I'm gonna be me, I'm gonna express my uniqueness. But when everybody's expressing their uniqueness the same way, you're just being a follower. I'm just gonna do a couple more sets. I'm gonna destroy myself. I just gotta be able to stay as strong. I'm not trying to get much stronger.
Zeth asks, yo, Elliott, what was your nearest death experience?
My nearest death experience? There's one time I got really, really high on eating weed edibles. I thought I was gonna die, but you know how that is. That's paranoia. I didn't actually die. But I made peace with death. I wasn't blown out of my mind. I was so high. But I was like at a friend's house. I was just sitting there. I was like, I'm ready to die. I thought I was gonna close my eyes. I thought I was gonna die. That's how stupid weed is. I ate a bunch of it and I thought I was gonna die. You can't die from eating weed. Anyway, actually dying, I've had some close calls, most prevalent of which is almost dropping a 400-pound stone on my stomach and having my guts blow out of my asshole. That you can see on YouTube. 400-pound stone disaster. Elliott Hulse, you've probably seen it before, but that was a close call, right? Dropping that and disemboweling myself could have led to a slow, agonizing death or lots and lots of surgeries. I think that was it. Both, one was a perceived close call, the other one was a legitimate close call. Well, I'm not really sure if I've gotten that close to death in any other way. I've been fortunate.
Asks, yo Elliott, what do you recommend for me to break through my strength plateau?
Breaking through strength plateaus could happen in a myriad of different ways, right? Like, for example, you could just study the strength curve, right? Like, if you're struggling with your bench press, are you stuck in the hole or are you stuck on your lockout, right? If you're stuck in the hole, there are certain exercises that you can do to help bring that up, right? Short repetitions from the bottom up. Or if it's the lockout, you could do board presses, you could do pin presses or floor presses, right? So there's a strength curve. You can consider that. You could also consider that your nervous system has gotten bored, right? This like legitimately happens. Like the nervous system just adapts to the stimulus, and so you got to change the stimulus. If you're used to doing, say, 5x5s, right? You might want to throw in a phase where you're doing like 100 rep sets, right? Like just change it up completely. They call it muscle confusion. I don't know if that's legit, what we're talking about right now, but your body gets burnt out doing the same things over and over again, right? So there's that. And then there's also physiologically, right? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you legit eating enough, right? Are you taking the right supplements, right? Creatine can bust you through strength plateaus for sure. So there's just a myriad of different things to consider, man. One of which I've seen time and time again is guys going to the gym, they're just not working hard enough. Like they're just not working hard enough. It's like, yeah, you're doing it, you're doing the right things, you're doing the exercise well, but you're really not straining and struggling under the weight. And it's that strain, that struggle, that perceived rate of exhaustion or straining that causes your muscles and your nervous system to adapt. I had a friend over this weekend, Jay Vincent. I might do a video with him here pretty soon. I'll invite him over, but he's into like heavy, Mike Menser, heavy duty training, but he does it like a little bit like upgraded with new knowledge because Menser was like back in the 80s. And he does like 1 or 2 sets for every body part, and he only trains twice a week. And he's super strong and he gets jacked. Why? Because he stimulates the muscle by working. 1 or 2 sets means I'm destroying myself in 1 or 2 sets. Like I'm working really, really hard, as opposed to like 5 mediocre sets. You see what I'm saying? So there are a lot of different things to consider. Now you're here on YouTube, go check out Jay Vincent and maybe follow some of his protocols for a little while. That'll be muscle confusing too. Cows on the field, right? Like around here, you're kind of forced to create agriculture, like some sort of agricultural business so that you could have a tax write-off. So I was on my way of doing it anyway, but I gotta get my fences fixed before I put cattle on the land. So I got a guy coming.
JC asks, yo Elliott, how do I deal with my anxiety?
I don't know. Some people, they get anxiety because they're drinking coffee. Like, check out how much caffeine you're taking. Right? That's one thing to consider. Doesn't always have to be something super mystical. It could be legitimately, you're not sleeping enough, which fries your hormones. And then you're drinking too much caffeine or taking up too much caffeine, which further fries your adrenals. Now you're walking around with anxiety and you think you need to speak to Sigmund Freud. Well, cut back on the caffeine, bro. Right? You see what I'm saying? It could be as simple as that. I don't really know where you're coming from in your life. People get anxiety for all kinds of dumb reasons too. Like perceived threats, right? Like if you're walking around waiting for the sky to fall down, you're gonna be anxious all the time, right? Like I'm sort of an amateur prepper, I guess you could say. I prep a little bit because things are getting weird in the world. I'm not anxious about it. But if you're proceeding from a place of, oh no, the sky is falling, there's nothing I can do, then that fear can lead to your sense of anxiety, right? So is it physiological? Is it psychological? I don't know.
All right, Reb asks, yo, Elliott, what are your thoughts on signing prenups?
I think it's a good idea, right? I think that people are crazy these days. And not only, okay, I don't even want to blame the other partner, you know, wife or husband, for being crazy. People are crazy for not being able to see red flags in potential partners. Like these people get into marriages and then 5 years into the marriage, he's like, she's crazy, she's nuts, I can't believe it. But then in my mind, I'm like, how did you not see these red flags 5 years ago? You know why? Fornication. Fornication puts sex goggles on. When you're having sex with someone, it's hard to see the true them, especially for guys. When you're having sex with a girl and you're quote unquote in love, she got more red flags than a Chinese parade, right? And you're not gonna see them because I wanna get that gushy gushy so bad. And so you end up marrying this chick and all your buddies probably told you, or probably saw, she crazy. But with, you know, above and beyond that, listen, what is it, like 60, 70% of marriages end in divorce? It's not because marriages don't work, it's because we're not doing it right from the inception, like I said. We're not dating right, even dating. Dating is a new concept. Do you know that dating didn't exist before cars? Before cars, and then women's driving cars, what do people do? They would have to be locked into a place. They couldn't just drive around. So if you were trying to meet a woman, the families would work together so that the children, the potential husband and wife, could court one another. And courting, as opposed to dating is a rush into sex and living licentiously. But courting is a vetting process. It's like get to know the parents, right? The parents of that potential spouse could tell you something. Get to know that person, you know, throughout the course of challenging times or easy times. You're really just getting to know that person before you jump in bed with them and get those sex goggles on and then no longer can see the forest through the trees. So all that to say, I believe in marriage. I love being married. I believe in family. I think our society sucks and it's falling down because marriage and family doesn't work, explicitly because marriage and family doesn't work any longer, right? As a result of the sexual revolution and the degenerate chaos that we've fallen into, both men and women. But if you're gonna do it, I think you have to, look, the government is involved anyway. And that's a part of the problem as well. Part of the problem with why marriage doesn't work is because the government is involved. The government is involved, which introduces benefits to certain parts of the union to separate, get money from the government, things of this nature. So, truthfully, marriage should be done between a man, a woman, and God the Father. That's it, Creator. But now that the government is involved, if you have a social security number, and you have a marriage license, and you have children, and you get them social security numbers, they all belong to the state. Your marriage is not your marriage, it's the state's union. Your children are not your children, they're the state's children, right? So we are, whether you like it or not, heavily involved in the state. Might as well use it to your advantage in your marriage. They're already in your marriage. The government is already in my marriage. So why not create a contract that the government recognizes, right? In case something goes wrong, and then you have to separate. Personally, I don't have one of those. But seeing the men that I deal with and the circumstances that they suffer through, I can't help but say it's a good idea and something that you should do. At least look into, right? I have a friend who, he's quote unquote married, but really it's just a contract. It's when all of the stipulations and agreements and what happens if this happens are all in this contract. To me, it makes logical sense.
John asks, yo, Elliott, what is the best way for an unmarried Christian to deal with sexual energy?
Well, you mean like, what do I do when I'm getting boners and I'm not, and I don't want to jerk off or fornicate, right? What do you do with it? This is where semen retention, the whole practice of semen retention isn't just like don't blow your load. It's about sexual transmutation. Read biographies of men who were sexual transmutators, right? Like guys like Nikola Tesla, right? I think he speaks about it. Read Think and Grow Rich by Hill. I forget the guy's name. Napoleon Hill, right? He talks about how the most successful men in his study were men that weren't having, first of all, they got married early, so they weren't spreading their seeds out. And it wasn't until after their 50s, it's so interesting, after their 50s where sex starts to lose its appeal, right? Doesn't mean you don't want to have sex anymore, but it's like when you're a teenager in your 20s, like all of life is about sex, right? Especially with the way the culture shoves it down your throat to make you believe that if you're not boning every weekend, then you're a loser, which is not true. With all these men, it was not until after their 50s that they really reached their max height in success. It's because they weren't thinking about sex all day long, they weren't boning all day long, they weren't jerking off all day long, and so all that energy went towards their creative capacity to do something amazing in their life. You can do the same thing. One of the tricks I've personally learned through semen retention in marriage, it's called Carezza sex, by the way, is when you're feeling it, just remove your energy, just remove your thought from your second head, right? Your lower head. Remove your thought, and that means don't engage it when it's calling you, right? Don't do what I call the penis pump, right? You know what I'm talking about, penis pump, where it's like you got a boner and then you start flexing it, right? Because that draws more blood into it, and it draws more thought energy to it. Sort of allow it to, like if you've ever gone to the dentist and you're getting drilled in your teeth, do you know how to like remove the pain? You know how to like black out the pain? It's the same thing with pleasure. You can pull back from pleasure too. Your body can be having a pleasurable experience, but your mind you can pull off a little bit, pull back a little bit. And so if you're walking around with boners all day long and everything that walks by stimulates you, remove your mind from it. Take your mind away from it. And think about baseball.
Yo, Elliott, what are some tips to avoid injuries when doing heavy lifting?
Oh, well, I'm the wrong guy to ask because I've injured myself over and over again. Just being a beast, trying to lift things I shouldn't lift or throw things I shouldn't throw. So I think one of the best pieces of advice I could give you is know your limit and stay within it, right? So as a masochist, I kind of like pain. If you don't want to tear tendons and have surgeries and be in pain like me, then back off when things are getting a little dicey with throwing logs over your heads or picking up stones and things like that, if that's what you're into. But really, what we want are strong tendons. I've been thinking a lot about this lately and been learning about tendon strengthening as opposed to muscle strengthening. And it is a good idea to throw phases of tendon strengthening with short range exercises in it. I don't know if you guys remember when we first started this series, I was doing lockout presses. and that was to help strengthen the tendons as opposed to long range, movements. So with the tendon work, there's very short or almost non-perceptive movement, but a lot of strain against the resistance, right? So things like lockouts. Even my brother has done martial arts where they do tendon strengthening exercises by just doing isometric holds. He would do like a standing meditation that's designed to strengthen the tension because he's just kind of like leaning on the tendon as opposed to going through full range exercises. So these are things you could do because you don't want to tear a tendon. There's an old Chinese saying that better to break a bone than to tear a tendon, and I can tell you I know why. So I got to wrap up a little early here today. I appreciate you guys here being with me. I got some work to do because we got to repair these fences before we bring in some cattle. I was speaking with a guy just now who's kind of like my consultant and probably the guy that I'll buy some cattle from. That's probably something that you guys might be interested in watching me do or be around here when it happens in the next month or two. So I'll keep you posted. But yeah, the Strength Camp Ranch is up and growing. I got my orchard. I'm going to get some cows, some chickens, and we'll be living the homesteading life here. So I hope that was a cool video for you. Let me know if you got any questions, concerns, what you want to see. I'm going to start doing an open gym here pretty soon. I'm moving all my equipment back to the warehouse, so it'll be cool stuff for you to observe and enjoy here, being entertained by old Uncle E. Done.